Bang.
Nice. This is my meditation music now. The lo-fi beats of
StreamYard.
Yeah.
It's a banger
Captain
song.
Spock, always with us in the chat, giving trivia out to the people hanging out. What's up,
Nothing
Captain
better than
Spock?
true. I can't believe we actually started on time, though. This is, like, very impressive. I think we should get a raise after this one. Hopefully Alex is watching. All right. I'm going to bring us on. Hello, everybody.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Stochastic Best Ball channel. We are here. Best Ball Summer rages on all August long, and we've got a very special guest today with us to do a live Underdog Fantasy Draft. It's not only Nick Lepre at Notorious Fantasy. You know him well and good. But Pete Overzet is here. What's up, man? Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
I like that open. It kind of feels, I was like, do these guys know they're live now? And you're kind of talking behind the curtain, letting your audience in on how the sausage gets made there. That's innovative. I might have to give that a shot.
That's right. We're nothing but professional here. Yeah, it's all absolutely not staged conversation. Nick, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we actually improv this for like 3 hours beforehand. We wrote it all down. It's a script.
Yeah.
That's like, have you guys been watching Nathan Fielder's show, The Rehearsal?
No, heard good things.
Okay, yeah. There's like a very meta element of this where he's like trying out actors, and then he becomes one of the actors to get in their head, and then there's actors for those actors. It's Inception level stuff there. So I highly recommend it.
What's that on?
It's on HBO. So yeah, his first show, Nathan for You, was a Comedy Central show, really good, and now he's been doing stuff with HBO. I think he has like a 3 or 4 show deal with them, so he's going to be putting some more stuff out with them.
All right, that sounds pretty good. You gotta check that out. Also, I've just been binging Westworld, so I've been on HBO like all week long. So yeah, they're back this year, by the way. If you like fell off the Westworld wagon, I'm back. I'm totally back on. Maybe I'm the only one, but it's good stuff. All right, Pete. So here's what we usually do before we get into one of these drafts. We usually just talk about the NFL news, especially as training camp has begun. We get more and more daily news here because these puppy drafts that we're getting into, they fill in like 4.5 seconds. So if we just click go, then we're just going to get started right away. I think there are 2 big pieces of news that I saw today, specifically J.K. Dobbins planning to be activated by the Ravens, looks in line to play week 1. And then we don't know the severity at this point, but it sounds like Christian Kirk limped off the field at this point, and that could shake up the Jaguars receiving core. We'll start with Baltimore. Either of you guys feeling like J.K. Dobbins is going to play week 1 with no limitations? Pete, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the tea leaves had kind of been pointing in this direction for a while, and it's been interesting that it's taken the ADP to catch up to this news. So now that we got the confirmation of it today from Schefter, I do think we're going to start to see Dobbins' ADP rise. This was kind of the same thing happened with Trey Lance earlier in the offseason where people were like, oh, well, Jimmy might still be the quarterback. And it's like, that seems so unlikely, but the drafters and collectively the market just needs that confirmation to really push it up. And so, yeah, I was saying earlier today, I think you have 3-4 days before the lag catches up, and then J.K. Dobbins is going to be at worst like a 4 or 5 turn pick, and I think he settles kind of in the mid 4th round here when all is said and done.
You agree, Nick?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there's also news that Gus Edwards seems very unlikely to go week 1. I'm not too sure if that really moves the needle for anyone, but if Dobbins is healthy and good to go week number 1, there's no reason why he might not even move into the 3rd round potentially, depending on Pete obviously always drafts with the receiver guys, but in our drafts, there's more people likely to draft a running back in the 3rd round. So I think it is possible he moves up even further than that.
Yeah, he basically gets back to an RB Bros favorite up in before the RB dead zone. There's this fascination because of the RB dead zone. I've been kind of harping on this all summer long, is that you get players, especially in these tournament drafts, running backs specifically, that will get boosted up before the RB dead zone, or no one will take them and they'll just get pushed down below the RB dead zone. So players like Dobbins or Antonio Gibson, we're seeing a lot this year, like depending on the draft room you're in, they'll just like slip out of the dead zone, either above it or below it. The proposition, the opportunity cost is really, really different. I do think Dobbins ends up at right where he started the offseason as like a 4th round pick. Now, the Jaguars receiving core, I think people have been playing this all wrong. Kirk gets paid a lot of money. Nick, I know you've been talking about the other receivers in this Jaguars passing stack. Is there anyone specific now if Kirk misses any length of time?
Yeah, for me, it's Marvin Jones. I've been all aboard the Marvin Jones bandwagon. If this injury is serious, I think Marvin Jones' ADP is definitely going to move a couple of rounds up. Everything out of camp is just so negative on Evan Ingram that I just have to believe that Marvin Jones would be the number one guy in terms of targets if something serious does happen to Kirk. And I read that it was not as bad as people were saying, but you never really know until we get team confirmation.
Yeah, I really like Zay Jones too. I think he's getting a lot of buzz, a lot of hype. I mean, Zay Jones, second round draft capital. At one point, we thought he was going to be decent. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Omar Ba in chat is with me. At least one person on the Zay Jones hype train, essentially free. Anything else you guys saw throughout this weekend? Really kind of slow, relatively slow.
I thought you guys were going to talk about guys who could benefit from a Christian Kirk injury and not let me get in a plug for Laviska Shenault. I mean, come on, guys.
That's so 2021, man. No, hit us. It could still happen.
Well, first of all, it sounds like the reports, Mia O'Brien, Jags reporter, said he's expected to be fine, just rolled his ankle. But I do think it's interesting. You saw there, you guys tried to talk through like who would be the beneficiary. I mean, there's not a lot of excitement. And what I'm always thinking about is like, yes, obviously your target projection for Marvin Jones and Zay Jones would go up in that scenario. But like, who has the ability to actually smash their ADP? Who has the ability next year to be like a 5th round pick? I'm sorry, Marvin Jones can do whatever he wants. He's not going to be a 5th round pick next year. Where I'm going to leave a little candle on for Laviska Shenault. Incredible profile coming into the league. Had 1 year where he battled injuries. 2nd year battling Urban Meyer. Give me 3rd year breakout Laviska Shenault in the 18th round.
Oh, please, with the post hype sleeper. Your mouth to God's ears. I've been overdrafting that guy for 2 straight years, just losing money left and right. And now I'm on Wan'Dale Robinson as like the new Laviska in New York. I'm just no question about it. I'm ready to get hurt again with these like slot gadget guys that don't pan out. Nick, what do you say? You ready to hop into this puppy 3 draft? Get going?
Yeah, and just real quick, speaking of guys that never pan out, Paris Campbell also has minor hammy tightness, thanks to the tweet from 3 years ago. I mean, this happens every single year. It's not surprising at all.
Pierce Sisson begins already. Guess
all right.
That's good, getting Stephon Gilmore on him early. All right, yeah, bring that draft screen up. And yeah, we'll get going on this puppy draft. Of course, it's going to take like 5.5 seconds. Pretty decent time to plug Underdog Fantasy as it comes onto the screen. We got a great deal for you guys. If you use promo code Stochastic, not only will you get up to a $100 first match deposit bonus at Stochastic.com, we're going to throw in our best ball and fantasy football rankings package as well. As I said, we are going to hop right in and get a draft pick, but make sure to use promo code Stochastic to get up to that $100 first match deposit bonus and a free draft kit, $70 value, absolutely free. Oh, tell me we got a... Oh. Did you zoom out so far that I can't even see the pick?
No, yeah, my bad. We are pick
12.
How exciting.
Should we just start a new draft at the same time?
Fake influencers, guys. Once you guys become real influencers, you get the 101 in these stream drafts. You got some work to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. It's true. It's real true. We'll get there. Okay, so at least we'll start another draft with wide receiver, which I'm sure will make Pete happy. The Stochastic rankings, I guess we've become like the RB early people of the industry, but at this point, we're probably just going to end up with best wide receiver available.
Well, it does depend on the room. I mean, a lot of the rooms I'm in, especially in these puppy drafts, like if CeeDee Lamb and Adams are off the board, which a lot of times happens, I actually think running back is the way to play the back end of this round. I think if you're able to get a combination of CeeDee, Adams, and Kelsey, I definitely like that and think that's good. But man, I'm almost the way I think about it is having to start the tier gap from Jamar Chase to CeeDee Lamb for me is so massive, and trying to play catch up against those teams that started with better wide receivers than you feels daunting to me. I'd almost rather take shots on Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift. I've been mixing those guys in there. So it all depends on the room, but I will say I'm definitely open to running back starts depending on how wide receiver heavy the rooms are.
That makes me feel a little bit better, but man, I was doing some just upside analysis, like what is the most bullish case for CeeDee Lamb? Could he not lead the NFL in targets this year? Like, isn't that in his range of outcomes for sure? So, I mean, Chase is fucking amazing. But I do think that CeeDee Lamb, in terms of probability to lead his team in targets every single week on a top 10 offense, can't really say that for a lot of players, even in this top tier.
Yeah, I mean, you can't poke holes in his target projection. I mean, that's why he's going there. The problem is the target runway was cleared out for him last year, and he didn't do much with it. And so I think it's more bringing into question, like, is he the elite talent that we think he is? What were the kind of factors that didn't allow him to take off last year? But yeah, I mean, his target projection is going to be insane.
Like Dalton Schultz and Jalen Tolbert, your boy, Nick, they're fine players, but they ain't CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, I mean, much of the reason why Lamb kind of wasn't super successful last year was because of Dak being very inconsistent. There were games where he looked amazing and then other games where it looked like he had no idea what he was doing. So this year, if he's able to stay consistent, like not really worrying about the injuries, then I think he's in a really good spot to succeed. And we can get CeeDee Lamb right here. Is that the universal pick here?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no in this room where they're off the board, CD, and then yeah, I'm really good with. I mean, I prefer Swift and Barkley to Najee, but I'm fine with Najee too.
You know who I want, Nick. So it's down to your decision.
Yeah, let's go with Swift because I know you want Barkley, so I'm going to overrule you.
I hate you, but you're right. All right, yeah, DeAndre, man, I still worry about Jamal Williams. Not that old, 14 touches a game last 6 games of the season, over 80 yards in those last 6 games too. I just don't think he's going away in the offense. Swift is the superior talent by 1.5 miles.
Yeah, when you're just, I mean, the thing where my buddy Pat Carrain over at NBC Sports Edge wrote this really great article last year about the running backs who have the legendary upside. And really, when we're drafting any running back outside of Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, we're saying who has the chance to put up this massive, season here. And Swift and Barkley really are the two guys when I look at all these names here. I think you can make the case for Cook as well, but where it can really have the full picture come together, where they're catching a ton of passes, the offense is humming, there's lots of red zone trips, and it's really hard. You can't poke holes in DeAndre Swift's, pass catching role here. And so that immediately makes him more attractive to me. And then he's just a more athletic and explosive player than someone like Najee Harris too, where you can mix in some of those explosive plays, which is how Jonathan Taylor got there last year. So yeah, I get really excited about Swift Barkley because I know that's well within their range of outcomes.
Do you have any concerns about the lack of passing volume that Swift saw once they made a play caller change mid-season? Because his big target games happened before Dan Campbell took over the play calling. I think there are some people who are overweighting that, but it's just a yellow flag, I guess, for me.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of just more bullish on like the macro environment for this offense this year with how much they've kind of beefed up. It's going to be a while until we see Jamison Williams, but Hawkinson was really banged up for a lot of last year. I mean, and DJ Chark, I think is legit. Like, I think going for the upgrade from Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds to DJ Chark and Jamison Williams is just massive. And so I just expect this offense on the whole to move the ball easier, more explosive plays, more red zone trips for DeAndre Swift. So my hope is that everything is kind of mitigated there from whatever maybe play caller concerns you might have.
That's fair. We've actually seen Jared Goff lead an elite offense. Like, we just completely write off that fact that we basically are saying it's impossible that offense becomes above average where most of these players are being drafted. Swift for me is just really interesting. Lepre, read us off what this round was, because I can't see it on my small screen.
All right, so we went with Swift. Then there was Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Deebo Samuel, Mark Andrews, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara, T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, Javonte. The third round began with Nick Chubb. Pete, how do you feel about Nick Chubb? Because every time I talk about him, I just think he's like the least interesting player you could draft in best ball, because I feel like he's just going to be running back like 9 through 13, and it just does nothing for me.
That's so funny because we probably view him or value him similarly, but I think of him completely different, where it's like, I don't want to draft him in season-long leagues where I have to try to guess the weeks where he rips off his major run. But I love him in best ball and in this underdog format because I think, Chubb's top 3 rusher, just pure rusher in the league, top 5 if you want to
drink.
Stretch
you
it there.
Nick Chubb a pure rusher, the best pure rusher in the league. Got to drink.
Exactly. Oh, is that a drinking game here? I'll take some H2O for that. But so my thing is like, I think the lows are going to be low for Chubb. We've seen different, games where they get behind and they use a lot of Kareem Hunt. We know Dearness Johnson's pretty good. Who knows? But like Chubb has that ability to do what Jonathan Taylor does, which is, run to daylight with an 85-yard touchdown. And so in this tournament structure, he's actually a guy I'm like willing to take as my anchor running back. Because I think the distribution of his points lend itself really well to best ball.
Gotcha.
I think the 25-point weeks are actually more likely. I mean, especially if Watson gets on the field for this team, I think the red zone trips are going to increase. The red zone touches are going to increase. And that's really, as good as a breakaway runner Jonathan Taylor is, and don't get me wrong, he's amazing. He also led the league in red zone touches. It really helps. Touches inside the 10 really help. And I just think that when you're talking about a offense led by Deshaun Watson at some theoretical point, that running back, as good as Chubb is just going to benefit naturally from that. So less boring.
And the other thing is, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. I still maintain that one of Hunt or Dearness Johnson is going to get cut or traded. I know Hunt was back at practice, but I think that would really open things up too. I mean, if Hunt were to get traded, I mean, you'd got to expect Chubb would catch a few more passes in this offense, which would be pretty big for his role change as well.
I still think they like Dearness Johnson, in that role. They might move him, but I still think if he's on the roster, he's got a third down pass catcher role, which is super annoying because I think Chubb is a fine pass catcher, but they clearly don't or haven't shown it that they think so. All right. So, oh man, this is a spot where I don't want to take ETN or Ezekiel Elliott at all. So I'm happy to take McLaurin or Brown. I don't like it. This is kind of where I feel like you're moving from behind when you're at the end here. Are you on
It's
Josh
a gross
Allen?
spot. I probably take Marquise Brown here normally, but it is a gross spot.
Yeah, I agree. I would either go with Hollywood Brown or Allen Robinson. Would have been my pick.
Yeah, I'm good with either of those guys.
Sweet. And we're on the A-Rob train. Oh, man, I swear to God, if Matthew Stafford, if Allen Robinson finally moves to his good offense and he gets John Walford as his QB1 because Stafford goes down, I'm going to throw my computer or something. It's just this guy's cursed with quarterbacks.
It doesn't seem like we should be worried, though, right? Like McVay said he slept good a couple nights ago, knowing that his arm's going to be fine. So, like, that at least means something positive, as long as McVay is sleeping correctly in that huge-ass mansion he lives in.
I'm glad he's Lunesta free. That's what I like to hear for Coach McVay.
Yeah, I mean, that spot really is such a brutal spot in drafts right now. And you really feel the wide receiver tier now that, Cortland Sutton is firmly getting pushed up post Tim Patrick. I like Waddle too. Like, I think Waddle's mispriced a little bit. And so he gets picked one pick before us. I guess we should maybe be a little more excited about Marquise Brown. His ADP is kind of ping-ponged in this range. You'd seen him slide in some drafts early in the offseason. He was like a firm middle of the third round pick. So the reason I like Marquise Brown is because I think he has multiple ways to get there. Like beginning of the season, he could just have a really big target share with Hopkins out. And then in the playoffs, we know he's capable of the spike weeks getting loose with Kyler Murray. So I kind of like that balance of like, yeah, maybe his target share diminishes when Hopkins comes back, but then he's going to be getting single coverage and can pop off for some big games. So he still feels like a really nice pick. And then it also sets up for you, at the 5-6 turn is a pretty nice spot for getting Kyler stacked there as well.
I just, as you were saying that, I realized the reason I dislike Marquise Brown in his draft position is because his opportunities are going to shift throughout the year to the point where I don't like him as the wide receiver 1 on my team, but it's just pointing out that I keep drafting running backs early more than everyone else. When everyone's hurt after week 2, it's gonna feel really good. But
yeah, if you're upset with Marquise Brown being the wide receiver 1 on your team, may I recommend drafting wide receivers before him?
A novel idea we've yet to incorporate into our strategy.
Yeah,
We're
doing good here. This is a good structure. And this is like, I think is like the quote unquote dominant structure or, in drafts this year is you get that elite wide receiver in round 1 and the second round is like pretty juicy for running backs. And it's kind of a choose your own adventure depending on, what you prefer all the way down to that Javonte Williams, Nick Chubb. So kind of like that anchor RB build that used to be in everyone's head around one anchor. I do think it makes sense to push that anchor to round 2, just because the market has finally caught up to the floor and ceiling that these elite wide receivers give you. And then, get that anchor in round 2 and then go back to those wide receivers there makes sense.
I think you can even push it. Like Hawkberg at the 105 here, I think he's kind of building out a hero RB build with the 29th overall pick in Leonard Fournette, who he's got a lot of variance in his draft position. You'll see him go late second a lot of times here. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, just pushing the strategy to a later running back just before the dead zone. Not a bad way to play it.
And I'm sick because I'll push it even further. I'll do the anchor RB build. People would say it's a 0 RB build. I call it an anchor RB build if I grab ETN, Hall, and Dobbins, which I would kind of consider my personal 3 quote unquote dead zone exceptions, where I think those guys have massive upside, via different avenues. But I'm fine building out anchor builds with those guys as well.
Yeah, and you just brought up Breece Hall. It's funny how quickly Twitter changes. They get nervous. Breece Hall's the running back 3 on the unofficial depth chart. Like, I don't even get why people even look at that.
That's
I mean, and it's like, I did a video on my YouTube channel, the Pete Overzet's Deposit Kingdom, and looking at the kind of archetypes of players that generally finish the season strong. In this archetype for highly drafted rookies, both running backs and wide receivers, I mean, first of all, just in like the aggregate, rookie production increases throughout the season. And then for wide receivers, it's even more stark because veteran production decreases. And so the way this tournament is structured with so much money up top in week 17, it's like you should just be doing your draft board based on how you would draft, let's say, weeks 13 through 17. And it's like, you're going to draft Breece Hall much higher than that. I get why he's docked, but you're docking him for production early on in the season that doesn't matter quite as much.
You hear that, Nick? That's the only reason we're not high on Mike Evans. Nick is drastically different on Mike Evans than the stochastic projections, and it's because of how we're valuing those later weeks with Godwin theoretically healthy. I think starring Kyler Murray is a fine choice here, especially stacking him up with Marquise Brown.
I love it. I literally was in the same spot this morning and I asked the chat Darnell Mooney or Amon-Ra St. Brown. The chat chose Amon-Ra for me, but that's generally who I'm debating with here.
Oh, you don't want David Montgomery, the guy you've never drafted before?
I have 0% David Montgomery. So if you want to force a David Montgomery share on me, by all means, then I can blame it on someone else.
All the David Montgomery. I'm zagging as everyone zigs. That's all I can say with it. It doesn't feel fun. I love ARSB here.
All right, let's do it. I mean, Darnell Mooney, all those clips out of training camp of how bad Justin Fields looks is very much starting to concern me, even though I really like Darnell Mooney.
I haven't actually really seen that. What's going on with Mooney in camp?
No, it's not Mooney. It's just like someone's wide open in the end zone and Justin Fields throws it into the crowd. Like, it's like the accuracy is just off, but maybe I'm wrong. You know what? It is only August. Shouldn't overreact. Maybe I've overreacted a little.
That's someone I have 4% Justin Fields. I just can't see it turning around this year. The prospect profile is good. One thing that our analyst over at Stochastic, who's just amazing with the college projections, Matt Kajeski, was saying, they don't utilize Justin Fields as a scrambler like you think you might use an athlete like that. And if he's not going to have rushing upside, I can't guarantee any sort of passing efficiency or volume. So I'm kind of out.
Now, how do you guys think about this when now we have Swift and Amon-Ra? Is Jared Goff become more of a priority target for you? Are you guys generally trying to get your second QB earlier than that? How do you guys think about stacking when you do we've invested 2 top 6 round picks on this Lions offense?
You can go, Savogo, or I can go. But I was going to just say, I think in this kind of a build, we could be 3 quarterback guys and just draft Jared Goff as the last pick if he falls.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. So we had an article that Alex Baker, founder of Stochastic, did this offseason talking about the value of a third quarterback, even when you go elite QB1. So I think this lines up pretty well for exactly that. Goff as a third quarterback target would be the way I'd play it.
Yeah, and I was talking this through just on Splash Play with Chris Spags a few minutes ago, where I found myself in a lot of spots like this, where I'm getting one of these quarterbacks, Kyler, Hurts, Lance, in this round 5 to 8 range, and then I'm kind of missing or passing on that next tier, basically the like, I don't know, Derek Carr to Trevor Lawrence tier, and I'm then in a lot of really similar spots where I'm like, this QB2 build here with a Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Jared Goff feels a little thin. And then you're looking at the opportunity cost of what wide receiver would you be passing on to get that third QB. And for the most part, I'm looking at these wide receivers and it's gutted by then. And I rarely see guys with a ton of upside there. And that article that Alex wrote had really cemented itself in my head, mainly from the uniqueness angle and thinking through this idea of there's natural selection, the way the advancements are going to work in this tournament, where if Joe Burrow has a massive game, or let's do our example, Kyler Murray goes off in week 15, well, a ton of teams in the 16 semis are going to have Kyler Murray. And then let's say our second QB is, I don't know, Tua. And then Tua goes off. And now we get to the playoffs and there's a bunch of Kyler and Tua teams and there's a lot of overlapping guys. Having that third unique stack, that kind of strategic angle like really spoke to me and has made me much more willing to go QB3 when I miss out on 2 elite ones.
Not to mention, if you want to take it even a step further, when wide receiver thins out in these wide receiver heavy drafts, where we can all absolutely say that in these tournaments, compared to previous years, anybody who has a shot at being a wide receiver starter starts to thin out at the end. A quarterback with your 18th round pick, yes, you're going to get zeros, but if you end up with that as your third quarterback and you're the only one in that week 17 field with that quarterback, like, I'm forgetting Lamar Jackson's backup name, but
Tyler Huntley.
Thank you. With Huntley on top of Jackson or something like that, where the correlation may be even negative, but your uniqueness helps you out to the point where you're the only one with that lineup. That's where it really helps, especially with quarterbacks still scoring the most points of any position in fantasy football. So I've actually taken a lot of 18th round, like Trubisky or Pickett or things like that when they fall, not because I have any strong beliefs about what's going to happen there, but because it's probable that, most people, if they get far into the tournament, they don't have him in their lineup at all.
If I get burned, one thing with my QB3s is I'm always going with the rookie. I'm taking exclusively Pickett versus Trubisky. I've almost exclusively been taking Ritter versus Mariota, just with the idea of finding it very unlikely that these organizations aren't going to want to have a peak of their rookie guy by week 17. And if the thesis is we're trying to just get a unique stack in one of those last couple weeks, it just seems so much more like a better bet to play it on the younger side with those guys. So that's kind of how I've been doing it. I've gotten a little worried about Mariota. I think there's maybe a better chance he holds on to the job for the full year than, a Mitch Trubisky does. But I still just kind of prefer to play it through that.
Mariota is a player where I've been trying to be better this year. I'll save the full conversation till after our pick, but I've been all in on Mariota in one tournament specifically, and then full out everywhere else.
Yeah.
Kind of playing it that way. D-Hop kind of staring us in the face a little bit. If Zumberg over here doesn't hear us out.
I think DeAndre Hopkins at this price with this build is just the smash of all smashes.
Click,
I 100% agree.
Easy money.
So who else do we want then? I mean, we are in the running back train here, but I don't want any of these running backs in reality.
What do you guys? Why not Schultz at this price?
Boom. That's me. That's the one I want.
I agree.
Again,
I have high ownership of Schultz.
And I will say, is Dak off the board?
Yes. Someone just took him too.
Okay. I was going to say, I would definitely be open to a 2 QB build with Dak if he were to end up falling toward our next pick, but I'm still I know a lot of people don't like taking 2 guys from the same team if they can't get the stack, but I never really think about it like that because we're lining up all these other double stacks. There's only so many double stacks you can get in your lineup. Like why, if we think Kyler can match or outproduce Dak, that doesn't mean we're out on the Cowboys passing offense. It's just quarterback's a tighter band of scoring. I don't know why we wouldn't still want to make a big bet on an offense we think is going to be good.
Oh, 100%. We got to think backwards here in the same way, same reasons we're thinking about week 17 correlations in these tournaments. We got to think backwards in the sense that what does the winning tournament lineup look like in week 17? It looks like a DFS lineup. And we know in DFS lineups, we got 2 players in a skinny stack all the time, 2 pass catchers from an elite offense all the time. So I don't know why people would shy away from that without the quarterback there on a single week basis.
And what I love, like those 2 picks feel so good because a lot of times the pushback people get to, oh, you're galaxy braining week 17, you're over prioritizing correlation. I have seen people who will go crazy reaching to get their stacks. I mean, hell, Spags took Joe Burrow 2 rounds ahead of ADP this morning. So I've seen it. But the fact that we were able to get correlation and 10 plus picks after ADP, that's the chef's kiss where everything comes together and you're getting kind of the double whammy there. So I think those were 2 super nice picks.
Gosh, it's nice when you're at the end, the turn on a draft, and it's just like, well, I didn't even have to do any thinking here. They're so far below ADP and it matches what I wanted to do anyway. Let's just move on.
Well, and I generally find it that there's less values when you're picking at the turn. It's almost like you normally feel like you're having to reach, almost how we felt at that 3-4 round turn. I normally find you're able to scoop more values in the middle of the draft board. So the fact that we were able to get 2 values there at the end felt pretty rare. I don't see Schultz there much at all, especially with the James Washington injury and everyone kind of in, oh my God, there's so many targets up for grabs. It's kind of surprising to me that he fell so much there.
Yeah, and it also seems like Schultz is kind of on a tier of his after those top 5 guys, if you don't want to include him in there. And then there's like a decent fall off between guys like Goddard or Knox, any of those guys.
Yeah.
What players in the tight end pool after Schultz have any sort of percentage chance of leading their team in targets? Or I should say being top 3 in the NFL at the position in targets.
I am a Hawkinson guy, but I do think after that it's we know Dawson Knox is just going to feast on touchdowns. He's never going to be a big target guy. I think Zach Ertz has way more target competition this year than he did last year. And then you're into that. Like, I think after Dawson Knox goes, like this tier from like Zach Ertz all the way to Tyler Higbee is like the same tier to me. Like I have my favorites within that bunch, of course, but they all are just the same to me.
Yeah. In a recent video over on the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel, we were looking at the differential between the tight end 1 and tight end 7 in our projections in points per game. It's 6 fantasy points per game. That 6-point differential is the same between the tight end 7 and the tight end 31. We got 22 players projected for between 5 and 10 underdog fantasy points per week. Now, the spike week potential is different for players within there. That's why you say you have your favorites, right? Like I have a ton of Albert O. But in terms of average weekly expectation, they're all the freaking same.
Well, Gerald Everett always stands out to me the most. I'm like, if you told me Gerald Everett was going right after Zach Ertz, I wouldn't think you were crazy. Like if he was the guy, kicking off this run with, again, like the thought being, I think Gerald Everett's basically an arbitrage Dawson Knox, where it's like, you're getting a guy, he's not going to command a massive 20% target share. But if we think this is one of the best offenses in football and there's targets available in the red zone, we know Gerald Everett can produce well in the red zone. Like to me, just correlating there specifically with Herbert stacks, but just in general. And that just kind of goes to prove your point. Like, right. Like we all can have our favorites, and why I basically just try to correlate where it's like these tight ends are all the same to me. So I figure out my quarterback situation and then try to kind of weave myself in and out, hopefully hitting those correlations.
Another DFS pointer there. When you have uncertainty, just lean into positive correlation. That's a principle you should take into the regular season as well. Dawson Knox is a player that I've just had so much trouble with, so I'm glad that we don't have to make this decision. And my favorite 0 RB running back is about to be staring us in the face. Leper, you know who it is once again. We don't want to jinx it at this point.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything about that at all because someone will take him.
They will.
I'm surprised no one has started steaming this guy up yet. And I guess we're going to talk about him, say his name once we actually get to the pick, but...
Now I'm curious who you're talking about. Can I see what's our team so far? We got Kyler, Swift. Oh yeah, we got Schultz. I forgot about that. Yeah. This is a nice team. I like this team a lot. Anytime you get 2 big values, it feels like you snuck an extra player onto the roster and it looks a lot better than normal drafts.
Oh, you're
dude, we got
killing me,
sniped.
Zumberg. Okay, so this is a perfect example. I'm fine actually taking James Cook right here. You probably want Melvin Gordon, Lepre, but I think Cook, the younger player, has more upside. Devin Singletary, between both Lepre and I, he's basically our favorite second running back pick in the mid rounds.
I love Singletary. You're not going to get any pushback from me there. Although I'll just say I also love James Cook, and I never, if the market or the people in front of me want to make that decision, I'm normally like, go for it. I just want exposure to both of these guys.
All right. So where do you guys want to go now?
Yeah.
Well, if we want to get a little week 17 correlation, we could go Tyler Boyd there with James Cook. That's probably my pick, but I don't know. If you want to super stack Kyler with Rondale, you could too.
We have 2 super stack options. I love Rondale this year, and your boy Jalen Tolbert. I can't take him at this ADP. I think we can push it with another wideout.
Okay, I was gonna say Cordero also has run back against one of the teams.
Oh yeah,
in week 17.
One thing I'll say about Cordero Patterson, and tell me if this is different for your guys' drafts, and this is anecdotally, but it seems like he slips in drafts more than these other guys. Like a guy like James Cook might slide 5 to 7 picks, but you'll get the drafts where Cordero Patterson slides 15 picks. So anytime in my mind where I'm like, this is a guy that sometimes slide, I normally don't draft them at ADP. And I like Patterson, but like knowing that I think I got him at pick like 121 in the past couple days. So that's kind of my thought on him.
For the record, I'm happy that he's falling because now he's at a place where like I can at least take a chance. Earlier, he was being drafted like in that RB2-3 range. Like I wasn't getting any of him. Yeah, there he goes at 10-3. I guess he's one of those people that looks in line for touches, but the minute they moved him to a running back centric role last year, he was actually much less efficient than when he was in that hybrid gadget role that we kind of always saw him in. So I don't know. It's difficult for me.
And I like him in almost the similar line of thought with Singletary. Obviously, they're completely different players, completely different offensive environments. But when I think through, zero RB builds or even anchor RB builds, where it's like, if you grab an Alexander Madison as your second running back, third running back, like you're not expecting any production from him unless there's an injury to Dalvin Cook. Whereas a guy like Singletary and Cordero Patterson, I think you can really expect a floor of points right out of the gate. And I always like to mix up like the textures of my running back. So, James Cook, maybe he gets some third down passing work. And then maybe as we move on, we get some pure handcuffs that might not play for us at all, but if they do hit, they hit in a big way. And so Patterson is definitely more attractive to me in pure zero RB builds like that.
Gotcha. Dylan in the chat just asked a question that I was going to answer. He's looking for help in his home league. This must be one of those things where like Pete hires someone to say something in the chat that'll help him out here. This guy is asking about where to find our content for redraft leagues. Just go to the Stochastic Fantasy Football channel. Now you can go, Savoca.
Yeah, there you go. Way to
10K up top.
There.
That's a nice league.
Very much so.
Pete, are you doing redraft stuff as well as best ball anywhere these days?
Yeah. I actually just posted, so the show I do on Wednesday nights, Ship Chasing, we have a YouTube channel, and we are now going to be in full-on managed league mode. We draft a bunch of high-stakes teams on FFPC. So those are the main event, $1,800, and they have $1 million top prize this year. So yeah, on my channel, I'll definitely be ripping a ton of underdog drafts, and then over on Ship Chasing, we're going to be in those season-long high-stakes streets.
When I was first getting into fantasy football, I remember the Diary of a High Stakes Virgin series. That was a good time.
Wow, that's a deep reference there. Wow, that's a good pull. Yeah, that's where it started. Pat and I we worked on that podcast Fantasyland for RotoViz, started writing it, and then it just kind of evolved. Then we did a podcast, then it became a video show, and now all we do is draft on that channel. Like we used to do some like strategy talk. I guess I should say on Wednesday, we're going to do some strategy, but 99% of our shows are just drafting because that's all anyone wants these days.
Fantasyland. That's what I was thinking. That was like the like point of interest story about like the world of fantasy football. That shit was good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was really fun. Probably a lot of people don't remember that because that was almost 5 or 6 years ago.
A long time ago.
at this point, but yeah, we were doing, there was almost like NPR style, well-produced podcasts. The amount of time that went into those relative to the amount of downloads was just not proportional.
So I love Alexander Madison if he could get back to us. Zumberg, yeah, thank you. I think this offense is going to look really different, and there's going to be a role for him even if Dalvin doesn't get hurt.
I like Madison. I think he fits with this build for sure. And also say I'm happy to be done at tight end if we want to take Kmet, get that bring back with our Detroit guys in week 17. But again, if you have another tight end you like later, like I said, it's pretty flat.
Yeah, I'll get a little bit more of Cole Kmet. Honestly, I think that he's probably the clear number 2 target on that team by Mooney. So I don't know why the hell we're on autopilot. I guess I just let it pick. But we got Kmet, so it's okay.
Yeah, that actually could have backfired. The second one there, if we weren't taking the guy at the top of the queue, then we would have gotten him.
This draft is like being extra nice to us. This is very strange. Something's up. Not only the value's falling, but now we're screwing up and things are working out the way we wanted to anyway.
Yeah, I mean, our build is in really good shape here. I'm always kind of thinking, what can you get away with like a 2 tight end build there? And I think Schultz and Kmet, if there's a screaming value we really wanted, but I don't really like doing 3 QB and 3 tight end. I'm normally trying to decide. And I think the direction we're headed is probably more of a 3 QB.
I agree. This is a general strategy tip too. If you should decide where your line is, like what is the worst 2 quarterback build you can stomach? What is the worst 2 tight end build you can stomach, so that you have that flow chart in your head of, okay, I'm comfortable stopping here. This is right at the line, right? Schultz, Kmet, that is like right at the line of where you say, I'm probably good at 2, but I'm totally comfortable being there, especially in a tournament where we just kind of, in these, anywhere near the top rounds, we just need to assume that our top players hit the way we expect them to.
Yeah. And like I said, I definitely push it out just because I just have a hard time. You were talking about how flat that tier is and the points added from like 6 to 30. And the fact that these tight ends in general are only averaging like 6 points a game. So I'm so reluctant to use more than 2 spots at it. So I'm willing to even push it. Like I'll do a Gerald Everett in Dalton Schultz just because I think it's pretty similar. But yeah, that just general framework of how you think about allocating capital is how I think about all the positions. I did a hyper fragile build. I put all my chips on running back early. Now I've invested in quality. I need fewer quantity. I got 2 quarterbacks in the mid round. Well, now I don't need a 3rd quarterback. So that sliding scale approach to where you're deploying capital, I think is just like a good lens to think through best ball drafting in general.
Quality versus quantity, you will literally see that all over our best ball content over at stochastic.com this year, exactly the way we're framing it as well. There goes Chark at the 12. My boy Albert. We weren't going to draft him anyway. I understand. I have way too much of him.
Yeah, I think I need to learn how to say his last name. I've tried to learn and I still can't figure it out.
Why don't you just let it rip right now?
Albert Aquanbonum. That's not how you say it.
See, my problem is I thought I had it down pat for years. I say Albert Akuibunum, and then I was told I was wrong, and I haven't taken the time to learn the correct pronunciation. So I'm rocking with my old one or Alberto. Like this should just be a Romeo Dobbs situation where he finally admitted it's actually Dobbs, but he never corrected anyone for years, and Dobbs just sounds so much cooler. So I feel like we should just be able to say what we want,
Isn't that what we did with Tyrod Taylor? He was like, it's not Tyrod. And we were like, no, it's Tyrod.
Also, if we didn't mispronounce the occasional name, what would the chat have to talk about? I mean, this is really just giving them something to make fun of us for. So we can't deprive them of that.
Yeah, I still can't figure out how to say Dallas Goddard. I've been trying to figure that out for years. It's definitely not. It's like Goddard or some shit like that.
Well, if it's not Dallas Goddard, then I'm really in trouble because that's what the assumption I've been working under.
Yeah, I mean, people thought it was Kelsey for years, but apparently his last name's Kels.
Kels.
That's another one that's like Dubs, and I'm just not saying Kels. I heard that too.
Yeah, it's like my buddy who thinks the artist's name is actually Jason Derulo.
So what are we looking at here? Couple running backs.
We got
Oh
running
man,
I
backs.
like it.
this is definitely a tier break for me at running back. Like I don't mind TDP, but I feel like after Carter, this tier starts to feel like a wash. I'll definitely pound the table for Carter here.
I will too. It's the just the opportunity for like 10 touches a game drastically decreases.
All right. Sounds good. Then who do you want to go with next?
I'm all over Jamison Williams.
I was gonna say I think a wide receiver makes sense. We could also I think Jameson's fine. I think Dubs, if we want a little Madison Dubs week 17, that's in play. But I would say either of those guys work for me.
Yeah, let's go full on into Detroit. Go with Jameson. When do you guys think he's gonna play? Like how deep into the season are we gonna have to wait? Like November, or is that too far?
I feel like there's two parts to that conversation where it's like, when does he actually get on the field? And then how slow do they play it? Where it's like, we're going to give him 15 snaps a game, just get out there. Again, like through the lens we're viewing it of, I'm still drafting him in this range, 157. He's gotten a little cheaper. I have some bad closing line value on him. I was drafting him at like 130 and 140. But again, if he's talented and I like the Detroit playoff schedule a lot. And so I'm just hoping that he's up to in running well by like week 15. If that happens, then the thesis is in play for me.
The real story, like the real range of outcomes is just honestly so high at this point, because unfortunately, like we know what this could sound like. He could have a setback and then Detroit could be out of the running and suddenly they're taking it slow and he's not around at week 10. Like that's definitely in the range of outcomes. But the way we're playing this team, we're betting on Detroit as an offense overperforming their expectation. So I think we should lean into that with Jamison Williams as a player that they would want to bring back because the team is doing better than we expect.
The only thing I would say, and maybe we should have talked through this a little bit more, is I am generally a little hesitant to take two of those guys who we're not going to be getting production from early on in the season. And so we already took DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to miss the first 6 games. I might have used that as a tiebreaker to go Dubs. That's just one other consideration. On the other hand, we did add a guy in Tyler Boyd, who I think kind of boosts our floor at wide receiver as well, where we're not like expecting a huge breakout, but we know he's going to get, 5 to 6 catches a game and will probably be in our lineup while we're waiting on Hopkins and Williams.
Yeah. I mean, how good do you think Boyd could be if we were to see Higgins or Chase go down? Obviously not rooting for injuries here, but do you think he could be a top 12 guy or no?
Top 12 seems ambitious, but I think top 24 for sure. I think he has massive contingent upside, and that's why he's such a nice pick. I mean, he's kind of like those running backs too, when you're taking a Tony Pollard, right? Where you're thinking, hey, he's going to have a role and he's explosive, so he could find his way into your lineup, catching passes, breaking off the big play. Same with Boyd. Like, can this guy have a 2-touchdown game even with both of those guys healthy? Absolutely. We've seen it before. And then, like you said, the contingent upside, if one of those guys goes down, I mean, he's getting 10 plus targets a game easy.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I went back and looked at his game log. Even with Higgins and Chase, very healthy last year, we still saw 25 point upside at the upper end of Tyler Boyd's range of outcomes. So if you were to say, the part we didn't see is if one of them were to miss extended time and how much volume he would see as an increase. Yeah, I think wide receiver 1 weeks would be in there, but yeah, I have a hard time seeing wide receiver 12 or above.
And it kind of goes back to that thing I was saying too about like the running backs and varying the texture of your running backs depending on the build. Like Boyd, sometimes if I do a 0 RB build and I crank 6 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds, which I've been known to do, like Boyd is the last kind of guy I really kind of want in those builds. I really want then to add a Jamison Williams or a super high upside swing, knowing I'm set at wide receiver. Whereas in this build, where we got 2 guys that are going to be out for the start of the season, then Tyler Boyd starts to make a lot more sense. So I think being very kind of intentional with the players you're adding relative to the rest of the position group is really important.
And people totally undervalue or underestimate the value of the 9 to 12 point player because it's unsexy, right? But those are the players that fit in as the wide receiver 3 or the running back 2 when a lot of your bench players are on bye weeks or hurt, but your top flex players are doing their thing. So as long as you have that 10-point week in that final starter spot, you are competing there for a top ranking in your 12-team league. I just think that, players like JD McKissic, who don't have RB1 on their team upside really at all, but can get you that occasional 10 to 15 point week with a few catches and a touchdown, especially in tournaments, are undervalued in this format.
For sure. So another thing we should start kind of thinking, obviously we want Goff. What kind of are we looking at here for our potential QB3 options here based on our pass catching room?
We don't really have much correlation here. For
we'd have to kind of go like Tannehill.
Yeah, go. What are our running backs again? Let me see if there's anything.
We have Swift, Cook, Madison, Carter.
So Zach Wilson. On my stream earlier, I did like a backdoor Carter, Corey Davis, Zach Wilson. That could potentially be in play. Or we could look at, is this maybe a spot here? Is Corey Davis still on the board? No, he just went. That would have been fun at 177. We could get your boy
Barrios, who I think still has a role.
I like
that's true. We could wait on that.
Okay. So should we take one of the quarterbacks here, you think?
I think we should probably take one of them here.
I like Zach.
Probably Wilson.
Yeah.
Or, if we don't think there's a huge opportunity cost at the other, it might make sense just to grab both these guys, to grab Goff here too, because I don't think we really want to miss out on Goff.
Yeah, we invested so heavily into Detroit.
Yeah, I mean,
we probably get him late 17, but yeah, why risk it?
Never know.
That's my thing. Like if I always look and I'm like, hey, if there's a guy I want here and I want to push it, but again, like this running back tier, and this is something I've been thinking about too, as far as the value of being unique, is I think after about like round 15, like once you start getting into the Tyrion Davis price range, all of these guys have a similar probability of hitting in my mind, and they have different profiles, but it's like some of these guys like Marlon Mack and Brian Robinson are drafted in 100% of drafts. And yet you go a little further, guys like, Benjamin, who I like, Chris Evans, some of these guys aren't drafted in 100% of drafts. And so it's like, I'd rather just punt through this tier, get away from 100% ownership and get a guy at a similar probability of hitting cheaper. So I didn't see much opportunity cost there with double tapping quarterback.
Especially like the expected per game fantasy points of any flex player in the 16th round. It's like 4.5 to 6.5 fantasy points. So you're not really missing out on anything. Obviously, there are always the occasional league winners there. My boy Taysom Hill goes at 185. Still seeing Watson getting drafted. That's fine.
What's our structure here? What's our running back and wide receiver count?
I think it's 3. Yeah, 4, 7, 2.
So we're what? One more running back, one more wide receiver, right?
Yeah. I don't think we should go 3 tight ends with this build. Especially since we have 2 receivers that are basically irrelevant for the first half of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Brett asking, do we not think Mack will be the starting back in Houston? I actually do think Mack will be the starting back in Houston. That kind of goes back to the same thing we were talking about, the type of running backs you need. In a lot of my 0 RB builds, I will grab a guy like Mack, who I think is going to get some touches out of the gate. In this build here, where we have an anchor running back in DeAndre Swift, someone like Mack's production is far less interesting to me. It's like by the time week 17 rolls around, between Dameon Pierce potentially coming on, between them being in negative game scripts, and we know Marlon Mack doesn't catch passes, between injuries, like he becomes a very unattractive pick for me when we have, an anchor build.
I have really nothing else to add. I have almost no Marlon Mack. I just can't. I understand Jonathan Taylor was there, but he didn't get on the field at all. If you were at a level where he should get on the field, I think they would have found ways to get him touches in Indy last year. I think the hype is a little bit overblown, and we're trying to remember the player pre-injury, unfortunately.
I mean, he was very good though before the injury. Like, people forget how good he was.
And this is like the whole thing too. And we joke around, week 17 is the only thing that matters. But the thing that we're trying to highlight, for me, the flip side of that is the production weeks 1 through 6, weeks 1 through 7 matters the least. Our teams are extremely healthy then. We haven't had the full chaos of the season kicking in. The bye weeks haven't kicked in yet. And so we have the most ammo we'll have all year to plug our holes for DeAndre Hopkins and Jameson Williams. And it's like, you can flip that to the running back position too. And it's like Swift's going to be holding our spot down. And we've used some other picks on running backs that we expect to be there. I care about weeks 10 through 17, not weeks 1 through 10. And Marlon Mack to me is like a poster boy for a weeks 1 through 10 play.
Not like Tyquan Thornton, who we were debating back and forth earlier. Like, I don't know. It's the Patriots offense. They're one of the most enigmatic fantasy offenses I've ever seen. Just because the quality of the offense and the expectation there is not correlated at all to where they're being drafted. Just nobody wants Patriots at all. Nobody wants the second round draft pick. Nobody cares about these players in fantasy, and we're probably wrong about 2 of these players. It's kind of the way I feel.
Yeah. So what I don't mind tacking on a Jets wide receiver. What kind of running back here makes sense for us if we want to get a little spicy here?
I mean, if we're trying to hunt for the most upside possible, I think Trey Sermon is probably the guy.
I would vote Evans, but
what about? I mean, if you guys want my guy here too, and he's been getting a steady drumbeat, is Eno with our Kyler stack. Someone took Eno. Of course, in this room they had to have. I'm with you. I've been doing more Jeff Wilson than Trey Sermon, but I'm certainly open. Like, I don't feel super confident. D'Ernest or a 49ers running back sounds fun to me.
I could get behind it. We have no idea what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. If you want Trey,
all right. So I'm fine with either Wilson or Sermon. I have a decent amount of Sermon, so I guess we'll go Wilson then.
The reports are Wilson's been number 2 on the depth chart, but I feel like if I'm making that whole argument, Jeff Wilson could maybe be, a Marlon Mack type thing where he's not, the long-term vision there. But I don't know. With Shanahan, I think you can throw out the whole playbook for how he's going to deploy his running backs.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to the game, he might pick you out of the crowd. You can play. So we're taking Berrios, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I don't mind that. Yeah. Another guy who probably gets drafted in less than 5% of underdog drafts.
Yeah. Did you see his
he doesn't get drafted in DK
blonde
draft
hair?
20 rounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm the only one who always takes him.
That's a wrap on a draft. Let's see what it looks like as the final picks roll in here. Tommy Tremble getting that news out of Carolina camp. Is the Ian Thomas hype really over? Sadness. I actually really like how the squad
Ian Thomas
came
hype?
out. Every year, bro.
Yeah, this squad is basically one of my kind of favorite just build types right now with that anchor, the 3 QB late. We're getting an elite tight end. We got a couple values in there. Like I said, the only spot that actually felt gross was that 3-4 turn. You kind of hope that maybe a Waddle or a Sutton is kicking around there. We kind of had to, plug our nose and take Brown and Robinson. But even then, it's not too bad.
I agree. I think Robinson... I'm surprised Robinson isn't going higher, to be honest with you, in a lot of drafts. I think he should really be a turn pick in the 4th in most drafts.
I think that's fair. I think he's now going where he should be going. Unlike Gabe Davis.
Uh-oh.
Don't besmirch
I don't know
Gabe
if I have
Davis's
time
name.
to get into the Gabe Davis debate today.
No one's ever talked about it. No. So
Never heard it.
We're not on the train over at Stochastic, but we'll probably end up being burned as so many people like him.
Yeah, I'm on the pro Gabe Davis side, but we'll have to save that for another day.
Yeah, I'm on the Jamison Crowder train personally.
That's a pretty sad train heading down to the country buffet, $3.99 steak and eggs. Sounds like a fun train.
Yeah, it's a slow train.
It's a very slow train. Just
Old
chug
train.
it up.
I love JMO. I mean, it's probably going to end up being like Khalil Shakir and we're all idiots.
Probably. That's how it works. We're all idiots is generally the motto to being a best ball thought leader.
That's right.
It's actually just going to be OJ Howard scoring 3 touchdowns in week 17. Jokes on all of us.
There we go.
I hope so. I got plenty of OJ Howard. All right, Nick, read us out. How do we do? Final team result.
Alrighty. The squad is quarterbacks Kyler Murray, Zach Wilson, and Jared Goff. Running backs DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Alexander Madison, Michael Carter, Jeff Wilson. Our receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Allen Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, double Brown connection, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Jamison Williams, Braxton Berrios, and our tight ends are Dalton Schultz and Cole Kmet. I think we did very good today.
Little correlation, divisional stacks, nice solid 3 QB build. I really got no complaints here. I can't believe you guys just watched the Puppy 3 winner live on stream. Easy as that. Pete, thanks so much for joining us today, man. Really appreciate you coming on, lending your info, your insights. Where can people find you these days?
Yeah, best place is probably my YouTube channel, Utah. Why can't I talk? Too many shows. This is my fourth stream today, and I'm losing it. YouTube.com/Peter Overzet. I do multiple best ball streams there a week, including my solo best ball breakfast stream on Mondays, Splash Play with Spags on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do a randomizer best ball draft on Thursdays, which is always fun. We get crazy prompts from Twitter, and then every pick is dictated by the wheel. And then, yeah, if you're in a season-long mode over at Ship Chasing, and I write the daily newsletter for Fantasy Life. So I've been doing actually a lot of best ball strategy in that one. In today's piece, I talked about 4 ways to get unique in best ball drafts. So if you aren't subscribed to the Fantasy Life newsletter, I highly recommend that as well.
Definitely check all that out, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. Ton of concurrent viewers. Thanks for hanging out in chat. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Follow us on the socials as well. He's Nick Lepre at Notorious FNTSY. I'm at Draftaholic. You guys know where to find us. Until next time, you're doing a drafter show tomorrow, right, Nick? We got a live show tomorrow for you guys?
Yes, sir. At 12 p.m., I believe. So right at noon, we'll be live. Screw eating lunch. We're going to go do another draft. And hopefully people join. I mean, on drafters, it is a slow grind waiting on there 20 minutes until this draft starts. But hey, there's going to be some big overlay on there. So
it's time to hang out with the chat, break down the news. Awesome stuff. For Pete and Nick, I'm Matt. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Adios.